Okay, let's talk about emotions. We, in our human experience, have strong emotions. Things like annoyance, frustration, anger, resentment, disappointment, dissatisfaction, sadness, loneliness, depression. Yes, we have many strong emotions. Well, where do those originate? What is the origin of these strong emotions? That aspect of our human consciousness that I call the wanter, that is there within each of us to ensure our survival. That aspect of us that moves us from the cold back into the house where it's warm. That's the job of the wanter, to help survive us. If we get cold, the wanter, that aspect of us that I call the wanter, will seek warmer temperature for survival. So the cold doesn't feel good. It's a disturbance. It's uncomfortable. The wanter will always try to move away from discomfort, from the feelings that don't feel good. The wanter will always try to find some way to move toward something that would bring comfort when something uncomfortable is occurring, that aspect of us, for survival. We venture out of the cave where the fire is, and it's cold out there. That's uncomfortable. The wanter is that part of us that will move us back into the cave where it's warm. If we get too hot, the wanter will try to seek a cooler temperature because that heat is uncomfortable. The nature of the wanter is to always try to find comfort in the experience of discomfort for survival reasons. So anytime we're having a disturbance, there's something that it's occurring that the wanter doesn't want to be occurring. So let's say we get annoyed. That's coming from our wanter wanting something to be different than it is. So all of these strong emotions are coming from our wanter, that part of us that's always trying to make things ideal for us, better for us, comfortable for us. So when something's happening that isn't going how we want it to go, that can create a strong emotional response from our wanter. Let's use an example. Let's say you're going to go on a drive on the highway, and you go up the on-ramp to get on the highway, and you come up and you notice it's bumper-to-bumper traffic. There's likely to be some sort of response, an annoyance, a frustration, could even lead to an anger response. Frickin' traffic. So where's that coming from? That's coming from our wanter wanting something to be different than it is. This is a real obvious example. You come up the on-ramp, bumper-to-bumper traffic. Your wanter is wanting there to be not traffic. So the wanter gets frustrated about that. It's wanting it to be not traffic. Now notice, your wanter isn't upset that there's traffic for everybody else. Your wanter is only upset that there's traffic for you. Each of our wanters is selfish. It's looking out for what's best for us. In that moment, notice, you've never been frustrated that there's traffic for everybody else. Your wanter is upset that there's traffic for you. Yeah. Why? Because your wanter's job is to seek out comfort. Well, it's not going to be comfortable to the wanter to have to sit in that bumper-to-bumper traffic and then be late to wherever we were headed. All those things. Our wanter's wanting that situation to be different than it is. And that creates that annoyance. That's created from the wanter wanting there to be not traffic in that moment. That's where the disturbance is coming from. Every disturbance that we have, whatever strong emotion, whether it's annoyance, frustration, anger, resentment, regret, heartbreak, loneliness, sadness, fear, all the strong ones are coming from something, whatever's occurring, our wanter is wanting it to be different than it is. We're wanting that person to be different toward us. We're wanting that traffic situation to be different. We're wanting the weather to be different. We're wanting the situation to be different. We're wanting and wanting and wanting. And remember, the nature of the wanter is that it will always be wanting something. Use a strategy to try to get that in place, and then when it rises up again, it'll want it again. So every time we go up into bumper-to-bumper traffic, our wanter is going to potentially have a response of wanting there to be not traffic. Why? Because it would be way better for us if there wasn't traffic. So the wanter wants there to be not traffic. That's what creates that growl. I sometimes call it the growl. That first growl, when something's not going how we want. That can rise up in us. And then we might then say or do something to try to change that situation. We might yell at the traffic. Or we might, all these people, how come there has to be this traffic? If we get pulled into that, then how we experience the traffic is from that disturbance of wanting it to be different than it is and not getting what we want. Every interaction we have with another person, if they're annoying us in any way whatsoever, it's because we're wanting them to do it differently than they're doing it. Notice it. Anytime you're ever annoyed at anyone, the reason you're annoyed is they're not doing it right. They're not doing it how your wanter would do it. They're doing it how their wanter would do it. So this is why we get annoyed at other people. They're not complying with how we want them to be doing it. So then we have a disturbance. And then we might use some strategy to try to get them to do it how we want them to do it. We might say something to them from our disturbance. How come you're doing that? I don't like that. So our wanter will want things to be different, and that's what creates the disturbance. Now, what we can also realize is this doesn't mean that our wanter is not seeing things accurately. If we go back to the traffic example, the wanter is very much seeing that situation accurately. The wanter is right that it would be wonderful if there wasn't traffic. We're not saying the wanter doesn't see things accurately. It very often does. When someone is being mean to us and the wanter is upset about it, the wanter is seeing it correctly. It's not lovely for them to say or do mean things to us. Of course, our wanter would want them to not be doing that. So the wanter is seeing it accurately. The difference is, if we navigate it from our wanter, then we're navigating it from the disturbance. If we get trapped in the disturbance of our wanter, then how we navigate that moment is coming from that frustration, from that annoyance. There's a chance that when we have a disturbance, that we can just notice it, any disturbance, and just stop and ask, what is my wanter wanting that it's not getting? Oh, it's wanting that person to stop being mean to me. Oh, you're right. Thank you so much. Let's see, how might we navigate this from wisdom, from our true self, from a larger perspective? Rather than, if we always navigate from our wanter, then we're just going to keep doing certain behaviors toward other people to try to control them, to try to get them to be different, to get them to do how we want. We might yell at them. We might raise our voice. We might, try to harm them to get them to stop. We might try to guilt them, all kinds of things. The chance is, when we have some disturbance, to stop and just see, oh, what is my wanter wanting that it's not getting? Oh, thank you, wanter, for wanting that. You're right. It'd be way better for us if there wasn't traffic. Thank you so much. But I just need to let you know, we don't have any control over that. So then we rest back in our true self, our peaceful self, our calm self, and then we experience the traffic from calm, peacefulness, rather than irritated, frustrated wanter energy the whole time we're in the traffic. And from there, we might have clarity. When we're in our true nature, we might realize, oh, I can put on a song that I like while I'm in the traffic. We might even have a wisdom that comes in, an insight. You know what, that next exit, I think there's a back way. I think I'll get off at that next exit and see if I can find that back way to where I'm going. We might notice there's all kinds of options of how we experience the moment, rather than habitually experiencing from our wanter, where we're all frustrated, annoyed, trying to manipulate and control and all of that. We can thank our wanter, because very often the wanter is seeing the situation accurately. That's why it's wanting it to be different, because it's accurate. It'd be way better if if it wasn't, raining when we're having our picnic. Wouldn't that be great? But then we can, thank you so much, Wanter, for wanting it to be not raining when we're having our picnic. Okay, let me see what my options are. Okay, let's explore. What are our options? We can navigate it from a more wise, larger perspective of our true self. And so every disturbance we can start to notice is coming from our wanter wanting something that it's not getting. Now, let's explore what happens when we aren't able to catch it early and we get pulled in to a disturbance. At that point, once we're fully affected and pulled into a disturbance, the best way that I have found over my years of exploring this is a practice I call the living practice. And in that practice, we have to be willing to turn toward the disturbance because now we're affected. We're pulled in. And at this point, the wanter, of course, is going to try to distract, find something else to do, numb out with alcohol, drugs, all kinds of strategies that the wanter will use to not have to face the disturbance. But really the only way is to be willing to turn toward it rather than moving away from it. And at that point, it's then essential to be willing to stop and just fully feel the disturbance. Allow it to be directly experienced. Notice where you're feeling it in your body and allow it to be directly experienced. Now there's a whole, flow of that practice called the living practice, which I have recordings that help facilitate someone going through that process. And so if you're in a flow of disturbance, I would then recommend to play one of those recordings that can assist you going through the process of turning toward the disturbance, allowing it to be directly experienced. And then that energy is allowed to be honored, felt, experienced without resisting it, allowing it to be experienced without any strategies of trying to solve it or fix it or change it or move away from it. And then just be completely willing to admit to the feeling and allow it to be directly experienced. Now, in that practice, once you're letting yourself fully feel it without trying to fix it, then there's the next phase of that practice is to then include that the feeling, while real, we're not in any way denying or avoiding the feeling. Once we're fully feeling it, we want to then include that the feeling is real, but it's not all that we are because we're also the awareness of that disturbance. Once we start including that, then the disturbance will start uncontracting all on its own. We don't have to do any sort of releasing it. Just by being willing to feel it and remember that we're also the awareness of the feeling and honoring it and allowing it to be as it is, those contracted energies will on their own tend to release out. And as I say, the nuances of the practice are in the recordings that I have called the living practice.